It's over. 30 months is how long it took. The NCAA Committee on Infractions finally laid out their final punishments for the University of Tennessee. And if you're a Tennessee fan, you say thanks, move on, it's over, and it ain't that bad. That's and more, a bonus episode of Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it. We have a little overtime of Locked On Vols here on a Friday because after 30 months, the NCAA Committee on Infractions has finally laid out its final punishments for the University of Tennessee. I am Eric Cain. Thank you so much for being here today. If you haven't already, the regular programming of Friday's episodes is already out there wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Thanks for tuning into this one. This is all going to be about the punishments, and we're going to react to the punishments that stem back to the investigation into the program under the Jeremy Pruitt regime. Segment one, just doing two segments here. Segment one, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the punishments and how this affects Tennessee. Segment two, simple question for you. Was it worth it? Was all this worth it when all you had to do was pay $12.6 million to make Jeremy Pruitt go away? Was this worth it? I want you to ponder on that before we get into it, because that is an important question, and it's a great question because I can see both sides of that and a whole lot more here on this bonus episode of Locked On Vols. @_Cainer, @Locked On Vols on Twitter. All right, so this took 30 months. If you remember, all the way back in the 2020 season, it was what, guys? It was it was November 21st or the game right after Thanksgiving. I don't know. I've slept the last 3 years, right? And the report popped up about the investigation and all that. Then you had some players that weren't available the day of a game, and that happens sometimes, but you had a couple different players. And then you start reading more reports, you do digging, and you see what's kind of going on here. A month goes by, and then the university comes out, fires Jeremy Pruitt, goes in front of a press conference setting, and Don DePlum and the chancellor are sitting there saying, we did this, and everybody and their mother saying, what are you doing? Shut up. Well, there's a reason why. She's good at her job and she makes a whole lot of money, and likely we don't make a whole lot of money. She knew what she was doing, and the end result is finally here now. NCAA drags their feet. NCAA often has no method to the madness, but the big thing about it is Tennessee is not going to get a bowl ban. Tennessee will not get a bowl ban. 5-year probation period. 5-year probation period. It's going to be fined $8 million. $8 million, okay? And it's going to lose 28 scholarships. But the big thing about it is Tennessee, by the end of this year, Tennessee's already self-imposed 18 scholarships. So over the course of a 5-year probation period, Tennessee's got to do essentially two scholarships a year. And just to get 10 more. That ain't bad right there. So 28 scholarships, fined $8 million, 5-year probation period, no bowl ban, absolutely no bowl ban, which I think is critical in this whole thing. And the big news is, obviously, former head coach Jeremy Pruitt gets a 6-year show cause. Former defensive coordinator Derek Ansley gets a 2-year show cause. There's a 5-year show cause for the former director of recruiting during that time. There is a 10-year show cause for the former assistant to the director of recruiting at that time. And here's something that I don't think anybody's really talking about, because it is buried in the 70-page document that was released to media. And of course, you can find it as well at ncaa.org. It's buried in there. But also another bullet point under punishments: a vacation of all records in which student athletes competed while ineligible. The university must provide a written report containing the contests impacted to the NCAA media coordination and statistics staff within 14 days of the public release of the decision. So we're talking about a 3-year period that Tennessee's being investigated in. I would believe that the last 2 years, the 2019 season and the 2020 season, with 2 players who were cited in this report. They refer to them as player 1, or student athlete 1, student athlete 2, or prospect 1 and prospect 2, dating back to the recruiting times. Essentially, one of those signed and went on the University of Tennessee and played. And because of this highlighted part, it's highlighted on my sheet, but it's buried in the overall sheet, a vacation of all records in which student athletes competed in while ineligible. Guys, say goodbye to the 2019 season. I mean, if I'm reading that right and I'm understanding that correctly, and I've checked with a few other people, if I'm understanding this correctly, Doesn't just mean wins, which there weren't many during that time. Say goodbye to the 2019 season. Say goodbye to the 2020 season. I mean, that's a total of what? The 2020, January 2020 Gator Bowl victory, where it was a really good time for the program. Say goodbye to that. Tennessee's got to vacate all those wins. And again, you're talking about a total, in my estimation, of about 11 wins total. That is not a whole lot, but I mean, it's kind of a big deal. I don't know if that's ever happened here at the University of Tennessee. So I thought that was kind of notable, but nothing's more notable than, again, 5-year probation period, okay? $8 million fine, a loss of 28 scholarships, but Tennessee has already self-imposed 18 scholarships by the end of this year, so you really just have to do 2 more scholarships over the next 5 years to make up that 10 of the probation period. So that's not that bad whatsoever. No bowl ban whatsoever, and I believe Tennessee was going to be fired up and ready to go fight this in court tooth and nail if the NCAA Committee on Infractions tried to give Tennessee a bowl ban. Something Donnie Plowman, Randy Boyd, Danny White, Josh Heupel, everybody's kind of been all in unison. Now, I really think the Committee on Infractions are as well. Do not punish current staff members and, more importantly, student athletes for things that happened when they weren't here. Why punish this year's team when they had nothing to do with it? And I think that's a big theme to remember during all this as well. So those are the biggies. Now, there's a whole lot of recruiting restrictions. I'm not going to get into all of them because there's a ton of them, but limiting days during the contact period, limiting days in the evaluation period when coaches can go out and look at high school prospects, limiting official visits to campus during the football season. Tennessee's already restricted a lot of those over the past 2 seasons, but they're going to have a little bit more of those. Emphasis on recruiting. They'll have an annual workshop, if you will, every single year when a member of the NCAA will come in, and they will talk to them about safe recruiting practices each year of their probation, all that type of stuff. So at the end of the day, this is not bad, okay? The common fan will not see the $8 million fine, okay? The common fan will not feel the recruiting restrictions, okay? It's going to be business as usual because this has already been going on the last 2 years and nobody knew about it. Again, it is business as usual. In fact, in the 2021-2022 cycle, I believe Tennessee self-imposed like 10-plus scholarships, and nobody knew about that. You self-imposed a couple more scholarships last year as well, and nobody knew about that. And now, over the next 5 years, you're going to be doing 2 a year. So that's less than what you've already been doing. In fact, it might be even better than where you have been. So, that's kind of the big thing. At the end of Tennessee got its notice of allegations months ago, right? It went to Cincinnati for court and the hearing to appeal the failure to monitor charge that was one of the 18 level 1 violations given to the University of Tennessee. 18 level 1 violations, more than 200 violations overall, okay? Mostly noting recruiting practices and inducements to get prospects to campus, and the impermissible benefits, again, this is just the most hilarious thing about it, totaling almost $60,000. Almost $60,000, and all this fuss of 30 months in investigation is all over $60,000. Just cracks me up at the end of the day. Just absolutely cracks me up. But here's the thing. I was on the media call with the head of the NCAA Committee on Infractions earlier today, and the question was asked by Knox News' Adam Sparks. He said, hypothetically, if Tennessee didn't play ball, if Tennessee did not cooperate to the magnitude that it cooperated with, what would have happened? And she was like, okay, well, all these cooperations and self-imposements and all that type of stuff, that would be off the table. So Tennessee would have very likely had at least a postseason bowl ban, if not more. So the fact that Tennessee played ball, the fact that Tennessee did all this means, you're not going to get a postseason bowl game and all that type of stuff. So, at the end of the day for all of this, even Jeremy Pruitt's camp and Derek Ainsley's camp and everybody else, think back to this. Donnie Tyndall, former Tennessee head coach, basketball, he got a 10-year show cause for academics, for the academic side of things. Nothing about inducement for players getting to campus or cheating in the recruiting board. It was all academics. Donnie Tyndall got a 10-year show cause. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, this really isn't that bad, all told. So that's just kind of how I view it. So there's 70 pages in this thing. There's a lot to go over, but if I'm the common fan and I'm sitting here saying, okay, what does this mean? What on earth does this mean? I'm telling you, it doesn't mean an awful lot. And I'm not just trying to blow smoke. I'm not just trying to, tell you what you want to hear, orange shaded glasses and all that. You're probably going to have some vacated wins from those years Jeremy Pruitt was here, but guys, think about it. I mean, I can total them up right now. Year 1, Jeremy Pruitt was here. He won 7 games. Year 2, Jeremy Pruitt was here. No, just kidding. Year 1, Jeremy Pruitt was here. He won 5 games. Year 2, 8 games. You're sitting at 13. And then year 3, you won 3 games. 16 wins, essentially, is what you're looking at, worst case scenario. So you're looking at that. $8 million fine. We'll get into more of that in segment 2. 28 scholarships. You've already self-imposed 18 and a 5-year probation period. That's the big thing. A donor, which is involved in all this, he's got to disassociate himself with the university for 10 years. I don't know who the donor is. I don't think it's a big-time donor that anybody knows about. But to my understanding, if said donor still wanted to contribute to Spire and the collective, it could, because the collective is not associated with the University of Tennessee. Though there's endorsement back and forth, it's not a part of the university. So, again, 30 months all to come to this. And if you're a Tennessee fan, you say, thank you very much, and let's officially move on. And if you're Josh Heupel and you're recruiting, again, I don't think this hurt Tennessee that much, but there were other programs out there negatively recruiting to the University of Tennessee, as they should. If I'm Tennessee and Arkansas or Ole Miss or Florida or Georgia was going through this situation, Alabama, I'd be doing the same thing probably. But there have been programs who have been negatively recruiting against Tennessee because of this, but now there's not that cloud. You know exactly what's going to happen. So even though it hasn't hurt Tennessee, in my opinion, if you're Josh Heupel, you can finally say, hey, we know exactly what's come of this. Now we can move on. You come here, you go win a national championship with us. We know for a fact we can go win one, and you can help us do it. And so I think that's big in terms of recruiting as well. That's everything you need to know. There's a plenty more that we can discuss, obviously, but I do have a question for you, and I want you to be thinking about this, and when we come back in segment 2, we're going to talk about it. All right? Was it worth it? Jeremy Pruitt's buyout was $12.6 million. Was it worth it in the grand scheme of things? Ponder on that. We're going to talk about it when we return right here on Locked On Vols. But hey, new proud sponsor of the show, and we're so excited about them. It's eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is the perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle as well, because every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, I encourage you to head on over to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part that you need fits right the first time around. Wouldn't that be nice? Just add your ride to the My Garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit or your money is back. Not bad, all right? Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. And when you shop at eBay Motors, that's the same way. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed again the first time or your money back. Go check out that eBay Guaranteed Fit right now and get the parts, the right fit, the right prices, all at ebaymotors.com. ebaymotors.com, where you can check out the eBay Guaranteed Fit. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. All right, guys, we got another segment left here. We are reacting to the NCAA Committee on Infractions ruling for the University of Tennessee. As we mentioned, and you can see on the bottom ticker if you're watching on YouTube, Tennessee receives a 5-year probation period, fined $8 million, loses 28 scholarships. Tennessee's already self-imposed 18 scholarships over the past couple of years. Plenty of other recruiting restrictions, and of course Tennessee's already self-imposed a lot of those, including official visits, restrictions on the road, all that type of stuff in the evaluation period. The big one, of course, is no bowl ban whatsoever. That's big. Jeremy Pruitt receives a 6-year show cause. Eric Cain receives a 2-year show cause, 5-year show cause for the former director of recruiting at the time, a 10-year show cause to that director's assistant, a vacation of all records in which student athletes who were ineligible competed in. So Tennessee's going to be vacating some wins and losses as well when it's all said and done. Thankfully, this was just a brief time period in Tennessee football history, but it begs the question, and it's something that I've given a lot of thought to, since the rulings come out today and everything, and I'm sure you have as well. Was it worth it? What I mean by that is, essentially, the thought process was Tennessee didn't want to pay Jeremy Pruitt his $12.6 million buyout to fire him and move on. Therefore, they're going to dig up some stuff they did, and they're going to fire him for cause. That way you can get out of paying that much money. But as I pointed out, all this comes with a hefty $8 million fine. And when you really think about it, Tennessee paid, I want to say, close to $2 million, maybe even more, in terms of the paying for the outside investigation or their own internal investigation that the NCAA set in on. It took notes and essentially said, all right, if you're footing the bill, we're going to be here and we're going to help you out here. So the money's kind of a wash when you think about it. Sure, it might have been a little bit more to fire Pruitt, but we're not talking about a lot of money here. And everything that came along with it, the black eye, the negative recruiting from other programs, fan bases, all that type of stuff, firing an athletic director, hiring a new athletic director, going and hiring a new head coach, all that type of stuff, dealing with the restrictions that's already been placed around this program. Was it all worth it? And I think it's a fair question. I think it's a fair response if you say, yes, it was worth it. And I'll get into that here in a moment. But for those of you that are thinking, no, it's probably not worth it at the end of the day, here's what I would say. And believe me, I see a lot of respected colleagues of mine and journalists who have tweeted out and put columns out already today saying, hey, Tennessee should have just paid the buyout and move on. And so you're not alone. But when you have a member of the institution, a whistleblower, whoever, whatever the case was, go to the chancellor's office, essentially send her electronic mail citing evidence of recruiting violations happening and impermissible benefits happening and all that, and it's already brought to the university's attention and it's on the record. If you were to ignore that, if you were to walk away from that, and it resurfaced, boy, you're in trouble. You're in trouble years down the line. So who's to say that if you didn't just say, all right, Jeremy, we're going to part ways with you right now. We're going to pay you your full $12.6 million buyout. You got to promise me that you're not going to come back and threaten to sue the university or try to put the university in hot water for violations that occurred under your watch, nor could your entire staff, especially the ones that we are going to fire. Remember, all told, there were 11 people fired by the university, including Jeremy Pruitt, 3 of his assistants, and a couple members of his recruiting staff. So, who's to say all those guys are going to go quietly in the night and never bring this up whatsoever? People find skeletons in closets all the time. Oh, also the student athletes that you cheated with, what's to say that they're not going to blow the whistle sooner or later, and this could come back and haunt you, right? You don't want that. So Daunte Plowman dug into it and everything. And then she, in her mind, she said, this is what I believe the best path to go down. And we're going to commit wholeheartedly to it. And we're going to try to bury Jeremy Pruitt and show that, we are willing to play ball and we are willing to do the right thing in order to save our football program and face minimal punishment so we can move on and try to change directions. And that is what Tennessee did. But at the end of the day, again, if it was all about the money, it's kind of a wash. But I don't think it was all about the money. There were acts of rules being broken here on campus, and there are people playing the gray area all the time, and that's just nature of doing business. But it can come back and haunt you. It can come back and hurt you, especially when you have examples of it happening on your campus on the record, and that comes back to light. So that's how I would kind of say that as well. And then here's also how I'd respond to that as well. Understandably, Tennessee was the punching bag. Understandably, Tennessee's had a black eye. The 2022 football season with Josh Heupel really helped kind of ease a lot of that. But let's go back to January 12th, January 11th, when all this went down. Think about where your university is, athletic department at least. Is your athletic department in a better place now compared to January the 11th of 2021? The answer is hell yeah. The answer is absolutely. Philip Fulmer, my head coach when I watch Tennessee, that's my head coach. When I think of Tennessee Volunteers in my childhood, that's my head coach, okay? And I'm sure he was yours as well. All due respect, he was not great as an athletic director, guys. He's not an athletic director. You got your real athletic director in here who knows what the hell's going on, who's raising money, enhancing fan experiences, made a couple of nice hires, as did Philip with Kelly and a couple of others, as did Hart with some of these other ones, and John Curry with Tony Vitello. Of course, it's been kind of a mixed bag here the last 10 years, but you got an athletic director in here that knows what the crap is going on and is good at his job. Got you a heck of a ball coach, too, in Josh Heupel. So, was this all worth it? My response would be, before I answer that, is your athletic department, not just football, but football's obviously what turns the lights on, is your football program and your athletic department in a better spot today than it was January 11th, 2021? The answer is yes. And so that would be my response. Was it worth it? I think in the end it was. You got to weigh what could possibly happen, what could come to light if you just turned the blind eye and just paid the money and said, okay, sure. You would have dealt with a lot of less national embarrassment and, columnists like, Wetzel and Pat Forty and Pete Thamel, just trying to dunk and dunk on Tennessee any chance they get. Sure, you could have avoided some of that, but also you would not be where you are today is kind of how I'd say it. You're not getting a bowl ban. Fans are not going to see the $8 million fine. Fans are not going to see the recruiting restrictions whatsoever. It's a good day for Tennessee. And the fact that Tennessee played ball to the extent with the NCAA Committee on Infractions is why Tennessee's not getting a bowl ban whatsoever, because with 18 level 1 violations, essentially, you're supposed to be penalized in the postseason. That's just kind of how it happens. But the fact that the committee came together last April and pretty much said if teams if programs are willing to play ball, they can kind of change that avenue, and that's what Tennessee did. But also, in the back of your mind, you also remember what happened to Oklahoma State basketball team a couple years ago when they did everything possible to play ball with the NCAA, and they still screwed them. Then you see LSU with Will Wade, who's literally on the line saying, strong-ass offer. Nothing happens to him. Kansas, nothing happens to him. But for Tennessee, or for Oklahoma State, it did. At the end of the day, today's a good day for Tennessee because more importantly, you can move on. You can officially move on, and that's what Josh Heupel's doing. The speed bump, you are past it, and I think overall it's pretty good for Tennessee. What say you? @_Cainer on Twitter, @LockedOnVols. Let's go ahead and subscribe to Locked On Vols, the YouTube channel, if you wouldn't care. Wherever you get your podcast, rate me 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Leave me a positive review. Appreciate you guys. Little overtime Locked On Vols here on a Friday. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend, and we'll talk again on Monday, everybody.